Hey, this is Luke Simons with Salt Strong. Today we're going to be talking about the Z-Man DieZel MinnowZ. This is one of their paddle tail options. Been testing this bait out for a while, so I wanted to share both the pros and the cons that I've seen while using this. We're not affiliated with Z-Man in any way, so I'll share both the good and the bad. But really, this is going to be focused on just how to use them. We have a pool back here, so we'll show some underwater footage of exactly what it looks like, so that you can maximize your results when you're out there using it if you decide to get them. So as for rigging, I'll show you different videos that show exactly how to do it, but you have two options. One is to use a weighted hook like this. You can see that's a weighted hook shank. The hook point is buried in the top, or at least is hanging on the top. This is the weedless option. This is the option that I prefer when fishing the shallow water. If fishing deeper water, I'll just rig this on a jig head, just a standard jig head. And obviously we'll show you how to do that in a separate video. So as for the pros of this bait, the biggest thing is just that it's just really strong. Not many lures can withstand just a lot of heavy and aggressive pinfish and snapper that are just biting at the tails, right? I can put a lot of pressure on that, and even after snapping it back, it is totally like nothing happened. Again, stronger than most of their tails. It is more buoyant, which is kind of a pro and a con. In many cases, I would prefer it to sink down, but when rigging for shallow water, it actually does help you, cover the extreme shallows more easily than a traditional soft plastic that is oil-based and more dense. And then the action. So the action of this tail, this is very it's this material, as you can see, it's just very light and maneuverable. So even just a slow retrieve, if the fish are really lethargic and have to go slow, this tail will still give out a pretty good amount of action. Just given that it just takes no effort at all, no energy to make it move. But as for the cons, this is more difficult to rig. So that's why I have separate videos showing you how to do that. So it is more difficult to rig. And for covering the deeper water, I typically prefer not to use Z-Mans because, again, it's just a little bit more buoyant. It doesn't get down quite as fast. But the option, of course, is just to get heavier jig head to get it down to the strike zone. Yeah, and the final con I would say is that whatever this material is, it does not behave, it does not react well to other soft plastics. So if you like to keep your soft plastics in a tackle box altogether, do not do that, because if this material is touching the typical oil-based soft plastics, it's going to melt. They're going to melt, and it's going to ruin both of them and just be a mess in your tackle box. So if you do get these, just keep them in the containers that they came in. So a little bit extra care has to be made, but again, they are strong. If there's a lot of pinfish and snapper that are tearing up tails of the other baits, that is when these are extremely powerful. All right, so now for the retrieve, we're gonna go ahead and get some pool footage here. And this is, when it's rigged weedless like this, I typically like just to swim it. And I'll show you how that looks. You can see that paddle tail is really, really does most of the work. And you can see just reel it in. And I'm actually going pretty slow right now, and that tail is still giving a ton of action. Yeah, so in general, I'll just do a straight retrieve, but every once in a while I'll do just a quick little rod tip. You see that rod tip just barely move? A lot of times just that simple little movement will get a fish that is following it just to go ahead and strike it. All right, so now we're gonna do an example with the jig head. Again, this is what I use for deeper water. And so in this case, you can jig it off the bottom. So let it sink down on the bottom and just jig it. A lot of times that'll generate strikes, but you also can swim it, right? If you just wanna cover deeper water, you can literally just swim it, and again, just like you were using the shallower version, it'll just get it a little bit lower in the water column. And the fish are down there, they'll react to that deeper retrieve better than if it was up in the shallows. So now we're gonna do a fish's eye view, where this is what the fish sees, right? Even on a straight retrieve, it's just seeing that paddle tail, and then every once in a while I'll do the twitch, and that'll just be, again, a lot of times that's just the extra thing that they need to go ahead and strike it. So again, you just never really know. It's always smart to go out there and just test it out, but just know that the ideal goal is to get in the right depth, and then at that point, then just figure out what speed and tempo. Do they like the twitches? Do they like it faster or slower? Twitches or no twitches? That's just a day-by-day type thing that you have to just be mindful of when you're out there fishing. All right, well, those are the retrieve styles that I found works best for this Z-Man DieZel MinnowZ. Again, solid bait, but what I've found over the years is that if you're struggling on consistently catching inshore fish, the answer most often is not the lure itself. It's really about maximizing your time in the feeding zones. About 90% of the fish live in like 10% of the water. So it's all about finding the active feeding zones throughout the different changing seasons, and that's what our fishing club specializes in teaching. We go out on a weekly basis, we share our spots, we show like on the lowest level on Google Maps, where the fish are positioning, obviously what lures are getting the best results. That way, when you are out there, you can just look for areas that are similar to what's working with us and use the same types of lures and just maximize your results. It's all about just maximizing your time out on the water. So to learn more about that, I'll put a link down below where you can check that out. But once again, thank you so much for your time and watching this video. I hope you can get on the water soon and catch some big ones.